Hi, it's Mayor Walter Sendzik, and welcome back to our home with Mayor Sendzik. This is a great time of year in Niagara. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. There's so much to be thankful for in our community. Now we're heading into the last couple weeks of October, and this is when we head into Halloween. Halloween is an amazing time, and always make sure that you have the utmost safety of the kids in your neighborhood. This is a special time of year, and it's also an opportunity for us to be talking about what's going on in our community. And this is why our home with Mayor Sendzik, this is what we focus on. We focus on wanting to shine a light in different parts of our city, whether it be through the cultural groups or things that we're doing at the City of St. Catharines or partnerships that we have. And one of our strong partnerships that we've developed over many, many years is with our Niagara Regional Police. And joining us today, we have Chief Bryan MacCulloch, who is a native of Niagara, who has lived in a couple of different communities, but more importantly, born in St. Catharines. He's been with the Niagara Regional Police now for over 30 years. He's been in the role as Chief of the Niagara Regional Police for 2 years now, and prior to that, for the 4 years previous, he was Deputy Chief of Operations. And so Chief MacCulloch has a lot of knowledge about policing in our community and also the evolution of policing. And what we've heard over the last little while, some of the challenges that we're facing as a community, a part of it is looking at how has policing evolved. And it's a complex issue that we're looking at, and whether it be homelessness or addictions or the rise of gun violence in communities across the country. And often it's the chiefs of police that are really the front lines with the men and women of their police force that are looking and understanding what's going on. So it's important that we have the police chief on today. And we're going to start with a bit of a development, because what's happening over on Welland Avenue, I believe it's Welland in the Geneva Street area, is District 1. And a lot of folks have been talking about that. So we're going to go to District 1, and we're going to give our viewers an update, and then we're going to talk about what the new headquarters is like in Niagara Falls.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it. The new One District facility, we're obviously very excited about it. 32,000 square foot facility that's built on, faces onto Welland Avenue, but incorporates the block of North Street, Geneva, and part of Niagara Street as well. So that's where all of our frontline officers that are going to be deployed in St. Catharines and Thorold, that's where they're going to work out of. Plus we'll have our District 1 detective office working out of there. If you've been by the site lately, there's a fair bit of construction and work going on. We are optimistic that the substantial completion date will be the end of third quarter of 2020. So. Wow. We hope to be in that building before Christmas time next year.
Well, it's great. A local company is doing the general contracting. It's Merit.
Yeah, that's right.
Merit Contractors, great company in the St. Catharines area that's done a lot of actually impressive buildings across Niagara. Yeah. And so in terms of the discussion about District 1, and so the current location of District 1 is in the downtown area, Church and in between
Carlisle.
Church and Carlisle.
Yeah.
So in that area. So when the new detachment center opens, that one will close?
Yes, that's right. All of our buildings are owned by the region, so it will revert back to the region. I'm not sure what their plans are for that facility going forward.
And I've been to the new facility in Niagara Falls. It's a beautiful facility. So what's it like being in a brand new state-of-the-art facility, and how has that enhanced sort of the Niagara Regional Policing Services side?
So that's, we've been in that building for almost 3 years now, and I think all of the synergies that we were hoping to achieve by having about 65% of our staff work out of that facility. So we have all of our centralized investigative units, homicide, central fraud, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, our forensic unit, our corporate communications unit, our communications unit that dispatches all of our officers to calls across the region, all work out of there. The ability, I think, has been, through the new headquarters, has enhanced the communication that's going on between our units. Before, we were in multiple buildings spread all across the region. So this forces those conversations and in fact allows us to be much more effective at doing our job.
So now that you have the new facility open, you have the District 1 in St. Catharines, what other places in Niagara have what would be a detachment center there?
So we have our two district uniform officers and detective office is also based out of our headquarters. So that's responsible for policing of Niagara Falls and Niagara the Lake. Going up the Niagara River, and we have a detachment in Fort Erie, so that's 5 district. We have 6 district, which is in Port Colborne, which does Port Colborne Wainfleet. 3 district in Welland, which polices Welland and Fond Hill, and then 8 district, which polices Grimsby, Lincoln, and West Lincoln.
And so how many men and women of the NRP? Do you have roughly 650 staff, or?
We have just over 700 uniform members and just over 300 civilian members.
And so looking at policing, and people say the Niagara Regional Police crisscross the Niagara area, I guess just touch on how has policing changed? You've been 34 years as part of it. How has policing changed in the past, say, 20 years that you've seen as an officer, rank and file, and then moving up through the system?
So in terms of enhancements to policing, I think we're much more reliant on technology, as every business is, right from having mobile computers in each of our police vehicles. So it really is almost a mobile office for the officers. They do all of their reports right from a laptop inside each of the vehicles. And that, one of the other features that we have now is the real-time operations center, which is, we're really excited about it. That's bringing technology to a new level where we're having access to CCTV cameras that are in downtown St. Catharines. But we're just starting. We're scratching the surface of that, really, and we hope to get all the municipalities on board. We've got some educational institutions that are also coming on board. We have tremendous capacity to be able to bring in all of those cameras so that when an event happens, we're able to access those cameras. It's not Big Brother in the sky that's watching. It's us being able to access cameras and provide real-time information, real-time intelligence to our officers out on the road to allow them to be better informed and have a better response.
And it's interesting because when you talk about technology and the mobile unit of the officer in the car, a lot of folks will say, oh, I saw a police officer, he was just sitting in his car, or she was sitting in her car. But I think it's important for the public to know, and this is why it's great to have you on the show, is that is a self-contained mobile unit where they're connected right to the system of the NRP.
That's right, yeah. So it's full network capabilities. There's really nothing that they can't access from in the car that they can access from a desktop computer in our stations.
So back in the day, when you watch the old some of the old police officer shows, they have a notepad and they're taking notes, and then they would have to go back to the office and they'd have to transcribe it. They're doing it right in their car now.
They are, yeah.
So that really does speed up or make it more efficient for the officer, and allows for, I'm assuming, and if you can corroborate this, is that it allows them to be more on the street per se than have to go back to the office, sit at a typewriter or sit at a computer and type everything in, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, before, I think, when I first started, it was handwritten reports, and there was some terrible handwriting, let me tell you. And, to be able to sit in a car and try and write on a clipboard, those days are long gone, and we're fortunate to have those laptops. The laptops are mobile in that if we need to go to a residence for any number of reasons that we're there, bring the laptop in with us, we can take statements right there in the somebody's kitchen or whatever the situation.
Right. So that's another part of what's obviously an enhancement of policing, but it's also a cost driver because technology is not cheap. So when we start talking about the cost of policing, technology does play an important role. And in terms of the recognition of the men and women of the Niagara Regional Police, you have a special commemoration coming up for for a location. You want to touch a bit about that?
So for the first time ever, we have an officer, Constable Luciano Di Simone, who was tragically killed in the line of duty on May the 2nd of 1974. And there's going to be a bridge dedication ceremony that's going to take place on November the 8th. Constable Di Simone was tragically killed on the QEW at the Welland River Bridge, which is between Lions Creek Road and McLeod Road, responding to an incident and collided with a transport truck. So the bridge where that accident occurred is going to be renamed the Constable Lucien Di Simone Memorial Bridge.
Wow. And though, so I've seen, and I know the public, you see there's a couple of other bridges that have been, and what's the process for that?
So first of all, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge retired Superintendent Damien Perrant, who was a member of the service back in the day. Okay. And it's really his efforts in nudging me about the opportunity. He had done the research that there was no, it's usually OPP officers that have had their names named on bridges. But there's nothing precluding a regional police officer from being named. So there's a number of letters of support that are required from the family, from all levels of provincial and local government as well. So we've done all that and just received notification just a couple weeks ago, and so we're moving forward with that dedication ceremony.
Well, it is fitting because I know when I drive through Niagara and I see the bridges that are dedicated to officers that have died in the line of duty, it is a reminder of the sacrifice that the men and women of the police services across our country, when they get up every morning and they go to work, they're putting themselves in potentially a situation where it could be ended in an unfortunate way. So this will be a reminder for our community when we see his name up on that bridge, that a member of our community died in line of service. So it's a very fitting way of doing it. And so when we come back from the break, we're going to touch on, again, the changing nature of what's happening in our community and the response from the Niagara Regional Police. Because I think from what we've seen in our community, the Niagara Regional Police is actually playing a frontline role, not in just addressing the issues, but also trying to be a part of solutions that really get to the core of what's happening in our community and other communities. And so stay with us, because there's going to be some more interesting and very, I think, evocative discussion about policing in Niagara. I had an opportunity to speak in front of the Police Services Board about their budget and also about what's happened in downtown St. Catharines. We've been experiencing issues related to opioids and mental health, and I was there on behalf of our community and on behalf of the downtown businesses to request services that could be enhanced through Niagara Regional Police. And Chief MacCulloch and I, we had a good discussion about resourcing and looking at the deployment of officers with the right resources, not just looking for an increased presence of police, but looking for what the Niagara Regional Police could do. And Chief MacCulloch, I want to touch on that because, first of all, the police board voted in favor of adding 41 new positions to the Niagara Regional Police. And some of the discussions that you and I had were about the mental health side of the issue that we're facing. So how has the Niagara Regional Police shifted some of its resources to deal with mental health in our community?
So if we look back to 2010 and the impact that mental health has had on our calls for service, since 2010, we've seen a 323% increase in calls for service involving persons in crisis. So we've incorporated a COAST unit, which is, again, in partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association, where we have follow-up that's being done to persons who are in crisis. We follow up on them to make sure that they have the support mechanisms in place after a crisis. But we also have a mobile crisis rapid response team, which has, again, through a partnership with Canadian Mental Health Association, a mental health worker partnered with a frontline uniform officer responding to those calls where persons are in crisis, they can quickly connect to the NHS and provide the supports that are necessary in those situations.
And so these are two new units that have been resourced by the Niagara Regional Police. And what impact have you seen being able to talk to those on the front line and also talking with some of your other counterparts?
So what it's allowed us to do, I think, is to be able to, obviously, with that amount of increase in calls for service, it has resulted in a significant number of mental health apprehensions. Our officers were spending significant amount of time at the hospital. So by having a mental health worker who speaks the same language as the mental health professionals at the hospital, I think it's really helped us in being able to streamline that process. The NHS has been a great partner, and we've been able to significantly reduce the wait times for our officers in the hospital because, quite frankly, that's not where they should be. They should be out on the streets patrolling our communities.
And when we talk about foot patrol in downtown St. Catharines and the need for that, can you shed some light on what do you think is required with the foot patrol? Because I think what people are seeing downtown is we've got an increase in homelessness. We've got the visibility of what would be opioid addictions that are all woven together around mental health. So what role could foot patrol play in that? And people have been asking for more foot patrol. So what role could it play to be a part of something?
Sure. So, as you and I have talked many times, the issues in downtown St. Catharines are complex. You're dealing with mental health, addictions, poverty, homelessness. Together, that makes a wicked problem.
Right.
And foot patrols, and we encourage our officers to be out on foot as often as possible, given that there are competing demands for their time. We feel that having officers out walking the beat, connecting with the community, engaging with the shop owners, provides that sense of safety. The reality is we're not going to arrest our way out of this situation with regards to homelessness. It's not illegal to be homeless. It's not illegal to be under the influence of drugs. It's not illegal to have a mental health issue. So I think what is really required, and I'm really optimistic about the prospect of a community safety and well-being plan, where for the first time in the history of the Niagara region, we'll have a coordinated strategy on how to address the issues that are, impacting particularly communities like St. Catharines and Niagara Falls. And
it's interesting because obviously a lot of folks, when they see an issue arise, and they say get the police in to deal with it. And I'm glad you said we can't arrest our way out of this, because too often people look to the police as the one to solve the issue, and their definition of solving it is take that issue and move it, take it away from where I can see it.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Out of sight, out of mind. And unfortunately, that's not an option. And I think what I'm proud of is what we're seeing is the partners coming to the table, whether it be Niagara Regional Police, EMS, Fire Services, Canadian Mental Health, Addiction Services, Homeless Services, the Niagara Regional Public. They're all getting around the table and saying, how can we be a part of that? And I think that community well-being plan, safety and well-being plan, will be a catalyst for not just closing the gaps, but also looking at what role each partner can play. And so, when you touch on the COAST program that you have, you're putting a mental health caseworker into that situation with the Niagara Regional Police, so that there's a safety element to it, but there's also a knowledge exchange where you're able to really get your officers to learn from the mental health caseworker as well.
There's also the preventative piece as well, right? So if we can have these people ensuring that they're taking their medication and that they're following up on their various support appointments and whatnot, it's going to prevent calls for service, both for us, for EMS, and other partners as well. So it's a big piece to it.
So in terms of some of the other issues that are facing communities, and there's been a lot around Toronto, what's happening in Toronto, the bigger cities are experiencing an increase in gun violence, and you're starting to see that spill over into medium-sized cities like Kitchener, Waterloo, St. Catharines, London. And so in terms of your approach as a chief of police, when people say gun violence and it occurs in a city like St. Catharines, touch on, what are the drivers of gun violence, but also what defines the safety of a city? So let's just start with the gun violence part of it.
I mean, you're quite correct. I mean, and we have seen an increase in gun violence in the Niagara region. Thus far in 2019, we've seen 11 shootings. And that's comparatively, we had 13 shootings in all of 2018. Certainly not unique to Niagara and not unique to St. Catharines. But what I would say is that we are working very closely with our partners. Unfortunately, a lot of the individuals who are involved in these types of crimes are from out of region. And so working closely with our other police agencies to share intelligence and to work hard at identifying who the individuals are. The recent shooting in St. Catharines, I can't tell you how proud I am of the officers that responded that night and of the investigators who are continuing to work around the clock to solve that for our community.
And you hear folks talk about how do we address the issue, and talk about, the federal government can play a role through regulating better the use of guns. The province has a role in terms of resourcing better the police services and providing more tools. And in terms of our community, when someone says, I don't believe St. Catharines to be a safe community, as the chief of police, what would your response be?
So my response would be, it absolutely is a safe community. When we look at the other big 12 municipalities across the province, we're ranked third in terms of the third safest community in terms of violent crime. Halton being number one and York Region being number two. So we are very much a safe community. The increase that we've seen, the other municipalities are seeing as well. So again, we're not immune.
Right. And I think that's interesting for the public to hear, is that we're the third safest community of regions our size, and that attributes a lot to the work that you're doing with the men and women of the Niagara Regional Police, because what the public doesn't see is all the things that are prevented before they come to fruition.
Exactly.
It's the work that's being done, whether it's through the detective work or whether it's through the following a case along, or looking at drugs and
sharing information and
sharing it and doing the drug bust before something bigger can happen. So a lot of folks don't see that, and our safe community is directly attributed to the work that your team is doing. But you do have a large team, like you said. You have 700 in uniform, and then you have another 300 that are civilian. What are some of the unique characteristics about this workforce that maybe the public wouldn't know about?
We have everything from professional hockey players, NHL, former NHL players. We have former MMA, UFC fighters who have joined our service. We have the second strongest man in the world who's on our police service, and I remind him of that every day, that he's not the strongest man in the world. I think his wife reminds him of that as well.
Are you the number one?
No, that would not be me.
The second strongest man in the world.
Second strongest man in the world.
So can we have him do foot patrol down St. Catharines? I think that might help.
He is quite an impressive man.
Wow. And they sing anthems, you have singers,
accomplished novelists. We have a UFC referee as well.
Referee.
So they do a lot of things, and it's not a surprise that we recruit people who have played team sports and who have been involved in competitive sports. They're a great fit because it's a big team that we have. So it's a natural.
Well, I got to say, as someone who participated in the Manchester basketball program 2 years in a row now, the Niagara Regional Police have had multiple teams in there. So fire, EMS, police, they all converge on Manchester, and we do this day of basketball with the kids there. And I got to say, the Niagara Regional Police team tends to dominate around the rim. You got a couple of guys that can get above the rim and dunk pretty hard. Against a little guy like me, it's kind of intimidating. So
Understandable.
I do know that you have very athletic people who play there.
I think we have 4 members that were on the Canadian National University Championship team at Brock University. So,
Yeah, you've got some big basketball
Yeah, we
players
do.
there. And I think that's what's wonderful about, I believe, the Niagara Regional Police, is that their involvement in community. And I know you got a few things that you want to, you've got a lovely hat there. Now, is that a hat you're going to be wearing as you get back into your car? Or?
No, this is a hat I have for you. I just want to say St. Catharines has been, always has been a big partner and supportive of the police service. So I want to thank you for, first of all, for having me on the show. It's our Niagara Regional Police Service and Niagara Regional Police Service Challenge Coin as well.
And the Challenge Coin, if I don't have this on me next time
somebody presents you with a Challenge Coin, that's going to cost you a drink. Coffee, beer, whatever it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to receive this. And you're doing great work with our community, keeping a safe community. And I just want to say thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful, wonderful October. I hope you get outside and enjoy what's left of fall. And until next time, stay tuned.